Namaste. Today's topic is simple interest and next is compound interest. Nowadays, interest is the very common word in the day-to-day life because whenever you want to start a business or whenever there are some family needs and you don't have sufficient money, then you'll have to get money from outside. If it is hand loan from friends or something like that from the relatives, it is okay. But if you go to a professional, then he is giving away some amount to you and he will expect in return some extra amount. What is that extra amount? Is nothing but the interest. The interest, there are two types of interest here. Number one is simple interest. Number two is compound interest. In the banks also nowadays, banks, those who are giving housing loans or any personal loans or any car loans or any auto loans and whatever the loans they are offering, they also charge interest. If they are not charging interest, how do the banks survive? For the survival of the bank also, they must have some earnings. So those earnings will be taken from the interest given to the customer. From the interest given by the customer and given to the customer is some amount will be given, loan will be given to the customer and the interest will be paid to the bank. So the income of the bank is nothing but getting the interest from the customers. So there are two types of interest here. Number one is simple interest. Number two is compound interest. You might have heard the words like in while taking housing loan, floating interest and fixed interest, something like that. So all this you will be understanding now in a better way. What is the simple interest? Simple interest is very simple. In the name itself we have that. Simple interest is like this. For example, you have taken some 1,000 rupees from a friend and he gave you that 1,000 rupees with 10% interest per annum. It is very, very rare nowadays. No one is giving that much of lesser interest. 10% interest per annum you have to pay to your friend. Then at the end of 1 year, because you have taken 1,000 rupees, 10% means it is per 100, 10 rupees. You have taken 10 hundreds from him. Very simple. You have taken 10 hundreds from him. So 10 hundreds per 100 it is 10 rupees. For 10 hundreds it is 10 into 10. It is 100 rupees interest you have to pay. So at the end of 1 year, because you have taken 1,000 rupees at the rate of 10% simple interest, you have to pay back 1,100 to him. You have to pay back 1,100 to him. And if you are paying him at the end of the second year, then you have to pay some at the end of the second year, then how much is to be paid? 10% interest for 2 years. And the principal amount means which you have taken is nothing but the principal amount. Principal amount is 1,000 rupees. 10% interest is 100 rupees per annum. If it is 2 years, it will be 2 into 100, 200. Then one has to pay at the end of second year 1,200 rupees in return. So that is simple interest. Simple interest will be of equal amounts. But in the compound interest, what happens? For example, you are paying, you have to pay 10% compound interest on 1,000 rupees. Then how to pay that? 10% in the first year of compound interest will be 100 rupees only. At the end of 1 year, simple interest and compound interest will be same at the end of 1 year. But when you take 2 years, what happens? For the compound interest, this 1,000 will become 1,100. And if it is simple interest, at the end of 1 year, 1,100. Compound interest also at the end of 1 year, 1,100. Both are equal. But at the end of second year, simple interest will be 1,200. It will be raising in the equal intervals, 100, 100, 100 like that. But for the compound interest, what happens? At the end of 1 year, it is okay, 1,100. But for the second year end, that 1,000 plus 100, 1,100. So 1,100 will be taken as principal amount at the end of second year. So what happens? 1100, if you calculate 10% on 1100, I'm talking about the compound interest, that will be 110 rupees. 110 rupees. Then what happens? 1100 plus 110 rupees. That will become 1210 rupees. See the difference. The simple interest has become 1200, but the compounded interest is becoming 1210 rupees. That makes the difference. So in the compound interest, what happens? Every year, the interest part will also be added to the principal, and the interest will be calculated on the total amount, after adding the interest to the principal amount. That is the reason why it is said to be compounded. And in the simple interest, it is very simple. It raises in the equal intervals, and the interest part will not be added to the principal amount. So here, what is that principal amount? Whatever the amount you take is nothing but the principal amount. And here, if you take this principal amount, the sum borrowed is called the principal with reference to the above example. Principal is equal to that example, some example I have already taken, that is already explained. So no need for this example. Let us move further. An amount, a total amount will be calculated, principal plus interest. Similarly, rate of interest, I said it is 10%, I said that. But what is a point to be remembered here is this. Here, if you see this, the formula which will be used to calculate the simple interest, SI, simple interest is nothing but PTR by 100. What is P? Principal amount, that is amount taken. What is T? Time period. What is R? Rate of interest, PTR by 100. It is not new to you. It is already, you have learned this in your school level. In the school level, it is already taught. So we are just revising that formula. So PTR by 100 will give you simple interest, and the total amount then will be principal plus simple interest. So if you rearrange this P here, this P will be 100 into simple interest by T into R. That is, if you want the principal amount, what is that you will be doing? 100 into simple interest by time into rate of interest. So remember this as the first formula. That is sufficient for you. Rest all can be adjusted. So simple interest formula is PTR by 100, principal into time into R means rate of interest. So PTR divided by 100 gives you the simple interest. Let us move. See, now this is the example. Now let us go to the problems. This is a simple problem. Let us see that. On what principal invested at the simple interest rate of 10% per annum for 5 years will the interest be equal to 500? Just see the question. On what principal? So if you write the data first, that will be more clear to you. Principal is not given. At the simple interest rate of 10%, rate of interest is given to be 10%. Of course, we will be writing 10 by 100 later. Per annum, this is per annum, please, don't forget. This is per annum, the simple interest is 10%. For 5 years, the time is 5 years. Now, what is the question here? Will the interest be equal to 500? That means that is simple interest, please, is given to be 500. To get this much of interest, what should be the principal amount? So, very simple, you just apply the formula, what you know here, that is I is equal to, just now I shown you, that is PTR by 100. This is a formula which we have already seen. Now simply substitute, this is 500 is equal to principal, we don't know, time 5 years, and rate of interest 10, that is by 100 here. Now your P will be, simplify this, the 0 gets cancelled here, it is 500 into 10. divided by 5. So it will be 1000 rupees. This is divided by 5. You can see 500 into 10 by 5 goes for 2 times here is equal to 1000 rupees. Just check it out. This is the option. So here the formula, whatever the formula is there, how many terms are there in the formula? Just remember first. 1, 2, 3, 4 are there. To find out any one of the 4, that means either I or P or T or the remaining 3 must be given. Remaining 3 must be given. If you want to find out the principal here, you must be given I, T, R. That's not given. I, T, R given. Simply we substitute it in the formula and simplify. And the principal should be 1000 rupees. Then only after 5 years, he'll be getting an interest of 500 rupees.